May I play for food? The shy voice of 12-year-old Amelia Washington echoed through the Continental Hotel lobby, cutting through the elegant conversations. People stopped talking, turning to face the little black girl who dared to interrupt the city's most exclusive charity cocktail party. Amelia stood at the entrance, her large, hopeful eyes fixed on the Steinway grand piano gleaming beneath the crystal chandeliers. Her simple, baggy clothes contrasted sharply with the designer dresses and tailored suits around her. She clutched a worn backpack to her chest like a protective shield. "How did that kid get in here?" whispered a platinum-haired woman. "Where's security?" Victoria Sterling, the event organizer and heir to a family fortune, approached with measured steps. At 45, she epitomized the city's social elite, educated, refined, and utterly convinced of her moral superiority. "Darling," she said with a condescending smile, "this is no place for you. There's a McDonald's 2 blocks from here." "I just wanted to play," Amelia repeated, her voice gaining unexpected firmness. "Just one song in exchange for a plate of food." Laughter rippled through the crowd. "She thinks she can play the piano," scoffed a man in a navy suit. "She probably doesn't even know which key is C." But Amelia didn't look down. There was something in her posture, a quiet dignity, a silent confidence that seemed out of place in a child of her situation. Dr. Robert Chun, a renowned pianist and competition judge, watched from the back of the hall. He had noticed how the girl's eyes fixed on the piano with a reverence he rarely saw, even in advanced students. "Victoria, drive." Chun approached. "Maybe we should let her play. After all, we're here to help talented young people, aren't we?" Victoria laughed. A crystalline, cruel sound. "Robert, please look at her. Children like this don't have access to music education. It's impossible." What none of them knew was that Amelia had grown up in a home where music was as essential as breathing. Her grandmother, a classical pianist who never achieved recognition because of her skin color, had been her first and only teacher. When her grandmother died and Amelia ended up in foster care, she carried not only the pain of loss but a talent she didn't fully understand. "Very well, dear," Victoria said, her voice dripping with condescension. "Since you insist so much, let's make a deal. You can play, but with conditions. First, you play only one song and we choose it. Second, if you play decently, I'll personally pay for a full dinner. But when you fail miserably, as we know you will, you leave immediately and never bother respectable people again." "I accept," Amelia said simply, her voice clear and firm. "Perfect," Victoria clapped. "How about Beethoven's Für Elise? If she really knows anything, she should be able to do it." The choice drew laughter. Für Elise was considered a beginner's piece, but playing it perfectly required refined technique and years of practice, the perfect trap. Amelia walked toward the piano. When she sat down, adjusting the bench with precise, familiar movements, drive. Chun felt a chill run down his spine. Those were not the movements of a beginner. Memories flooded Amelia's mind. Her grandmother Betty Washington had been one of the first black pianists to try entering the city's conservatory in the 1960s. Her talent was undeniable, but doors remained closed due to prejudice. Betty channeled her passion by teaching children in her small home. "Music is a universal language," Amelia, Betty used to say. "When you play from the heart, people listen with their soul, not their eyes." Amelia took a deep breath and placed her hands on the keys. The first note echoed through the hall with crystal purity that made several people look up in surprise. It wasn't the hesitant amateur sound they expected, it was confidence, intimacy with the instrument. Dr. Chun approached discreetly, his professional curiosity fully aroused. That first note had been played with impeccable technique. Amelia began the main melody, and every note that flowed from her hands was like a small miracle. There was no hesitation, no technical error. But there was something more, an emotional maturity that left drive. Chun completely stunned. The hall fell completely silent. Champagne glasses remained motionless. Conversations ceased. Everyone was mesmerized by that small figure at the piano, creating music of unexpected, breathtaking beauty. Victoria felt growing uneasiness. This was not going according to plan. Her orchestrated public humiliation was turning into something beyond her control. As Amelia played the complex passages, drive, Chun felt his heart race. The descending arpeggios that stumped advanced students flowed from her fingers like crystal water. Each note had weight and purpose. "This is impossible," he muttered, moving closer. "She must have memorized this from YouTube," Victoria said desperately. "Kids copy anything from the internet." But what Amelia was doing transcended imitation. It was pure interpretation, loaded with emotional understanding that only came with years of serious study. Amelia reached the climax, her hands dancing across the keys with familiarity that revealed hundreds, perhaps thousands of hours of dedicated practice. She played the final chords with a delicacy that made several people hold their breath. When the last echo died in absolute silence, she kept her hands suspended over the keys, reluctant to break the magical connection. Dr. Chun was the first to break the silence, his hands coming together in respectful applause that echoed through the hall. Gradually, others joined until the Continental Hotel vibrated with genuine acclaim. Dr. Chun approached. "Child," he said softly, "may I ask where you studied?" "Your teacher must be extraordinary." "My grandmother taught me," Amelia replied. "She said music was the one thing no one could take away from me." Dr. Chun took a step back. "Young lady, what is your full name?" "Amelia Washington." "Washington. Betty Washington. Are you Betty Washington's granddaughter?" Amelia nodded. "My God, drive," Chun murmured. "Betty Washington was one of the greatest pianists this country ever produced. She should have played at the best conservatories, but..." His voice faltered with ancient pain. "Who is Betty Washington?" Victoria demanded. "Betty Washington was a legend in the music community, drive," Chun explained. "A virtuoso systematically excluded from conservatories and concert halls because of her color. She became one of the most respected private teachers in the country." Then Amelia rose from the piano bench. For the first time, she allowed her true personality to emerge. The submissive posture disappeared, replaced by unshakable dignity. "Miss Sterling," Amelia said, her voice clear and firm, "you're right about one thing. I shouldn't be here tonight." She paused. "I should be at Carnegie Hall in New York, where I have a recital scheduled for next week." Deathly silence fell over the room. "My name is Amelia Washington, and I am the youngest classical pianist ever accepted into Juilliard's Young Artists program. I'm also the current national champion of classical piano for under-15s. The documentary, Drive," Chun murmured. "You're making the documentary." Amelia nodded. "Exactly. I'm collaborating with PBS on a documentary about prejudice and access to the arts. My producer suggested I attend charity events disguised as someone without resources to document how privileged people really treat those they consider inferior." Victoria felt the blood drain from her face. "You're filming us." "Hidden cameras," Amelia confirmed. "High-definition audio and video. Everything that happened tonight has been documented for national broadcast." "That's illegal," Victoria gasped. "Actually, drive," Chun interjected with dark satisfaction, "you signed image releases when you came in. It's written quite clearly that this event could be filmed for documentary purposes." "The documentary will air nationally next month," Amelia explained. "But I've also created a YouTube channel. My latest video, filmed in Boston, currently has 2.5 million views." The crowd watched in horror as reality hit Victoria. In days, her cruelty would be seen by millions. "Mrs. Sterling," Amelia said, "you spent this evening telling me that people like me don't deserve to be in places like this. Tomorrow, the whole world will see exactly the kind of person you really are." She turned to face Victoria one last time. "The difference between you and me is that when I was actually homeless after my grandmother's death, I learned that dignity doesn't come from money or status. It comes from how we treat other human beings when we think no one is watching." 6 months later, Victoria Sterling watched from her small apartment window as a limousine pulled up in front of Carnegie Hall. Amelia Washington, in an elegant concert gown, waved to fans before entering for her debut as the youngest soloist of the season. The documentary, Faces of Discrimination, had gone viral, racking up over 15 million views. Victoria had become the national symbol of elitist hypocrisy, losing her position in all charitable organizations and the respect of the high society she valued. Her luxury events company lost all its important clients. Meanwhile, Drive, Chun had become Amelia's official mentor. The Continental Hotel created a scholarship program for underprivileged young musicians, naming Amelia as its ambassador. Music knows no color, social class, or zip code, Amelia said in her first national interview. It only knows truth and passion, and when you have both, no barrier can stop you. Music schools across the country started community outreach programs. Conservatories revised admissions processes. Hundreds of talented young people from underprivileged communities were given opportunities previously denied them. Victoria, watching Amelia triumph where she had tried to humiliate her, finally understood the most painful lesson of her life. Dignity and talent cannot be bought with money, inherited with surnames, or measured by skin color or address. Amelia's best revenge wasn't destroying Victoria. It was proving that true greatness transcends prejudice, and that sometimes the people we least expect carry the most extraordinary gifts. What made her victory so powerful was not a single dramatic confrontation or a moment of public humiliation for her rival, but the quiet, unshakable way she rose above every limitation placed on her. For years, Amelia had lived under the weight of assumptions. People decided who she was before she ever spoke. They judged her background, her appearance, her circumstances, and used those shallow observations to define her worth. Victoria was simply the loudest voice among many, confident, polished, and cruel in the way only someone protected by privilege can be. She believed power came from stepping on others, from reminding them of where they belonged. And for a long time, she truly thought she had won. But Amelia understood something Victoria never did. Real strength doesn't need to announce itself. It grows quietly, forged in moments of struggle, disappointment, and resilience. Every insult Amelia swallowed, every door closed in her face, every time she was underestimated, those moments became fuel. Instead of hardening her heart with bitterness, she sharpened her skills. Instead of plotting revenge, she invested in growth. What set Amelia apart was her refusal to let hatred shape her future. She didn't try to beat Victoria at her own game of manipulation and cruelty. She chose a higher path, one that demanded patience, discipline, and self-belief. While others were busy proving superiority through words, Amelia let her actions speak. She showed up prepared when no one expected her to. She delivered excellence where mediocrity was assumed. Slowly, unmistakably, the narrative began to change. People who once overlooked her started to notice. Not because Amelia demanded recognition, but because it became impossible to ignore her impact. Her work carried integrity, her presence carried dignity, and her success carried a quiet message that echoed louder than any insult Victoria had ever spoken. You were wrong about me. Victoria's downfall wasn't dramatic. There was no single moment where she was publicly destroyed. Instead, her power faded as Amelia's influence grew. The same people who once laughed along now questioned their own judgments. The pedestal Victoria stood on cracked, not from attack, but from comparison. Amelia didn't need to expose Victoria's flaws, she simply revealed what true greatness looked like. And that was the most profound revenge of all. Amelia proved that prejudice is small-minded, and that talent, character, and perseverance are not limited by stereotypes. She showed that dignity is stronger than arrogance, and that empathy creates a legacy far more lasting than fear. By choosing excellence over envy, and purpose over pettiness, she rewrote the story others had written for her. In the end, Amelia didn't just succeed for herself. She became a symbol for everyone who had ever been underestimated, ignored, or dismissed. Her journey whispered hope to the quiet dreamers and shouted truth to the doubters. You don't need to destroy your enemies to win. Sometimes, the greatest victory is becoming so extraordinary that their prejudice collapses under the weight of your success. That was Amelia's revenge, not rooted in anger, but in greatness.